Welcome to the Vault Excel. Thank you for joining me. Happy Hump Day. Hope you all are well. This commentary is by Fox 10 Phoenix. Thomas Matthew Crooks. The plan.
Learning new details on the moments leading up to the assassination attempt on former President Trump.
Yeah, federal law enforcement sources tell Fox News that an officer confronted the gunman and then retreated. Fox's Caroline Elliott joins us live in Butler, Pennsylvania tonight from outside the crime scene. Caroline.
Christina, we're told police officers had the opportunity to stop the shooter as early as 30 minutes before. And federal sources tell us tips were coming in, warning police officers of a suspicious man on top of this roof behind us. But nothing happened until after those shots were fired. Federal law enforcement sources tell us a local police officer even took a photo of the suspect and flagged it to state police about an hour or half an hour before, we should say. Eventually, the shooter, Thomas Matthew Crooks, made it to the rooftop armed with an AR-style rifle. Law enforcement sources tell us rally-goers warned police again, and according to the Butler County Sheriff, around the same time, a local police officer lifted another officer onto the roof. That's when the shooter aimed his rifle at the officer, and the officer ducked for cover. Moments later, the shooter fired several shots toward the crowd, killing one Trump supporter, injuring two others. And as police pointed out, Donald Trump came within millimeters of taking a bullet to the head. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro says the shooting should have never happened.
Pennsylvania State Police is leading the investigation into the two wounded Pennsylvanians, along with, unfortunately, Corey, whose life was taken from us as he was there advocating for his preferred candidate. That should never, ever happen.
In an interview with ABC News, the Secret Service director says she takes responsibility for what happened. She says there will be some changes at the agency, but she's not stepping down. Mark, Christina.
Yeah, Caroline, what's the scene look like behind you? Is it still pretty active, or have they kind of wrapped things up for now?
Yeah, Christina, as of right now, this is still an active crime scene, and the media is still being kept several hundred yards back. When you're driving around, you can still see FBI investigators looking for any details on what could help them understand what happened here on Saturday. Christina.
Okay, Carol.
Let's go back a little bit of ways.
Or half an hour before, we should say. Eventually, the man on top of this roof behind us, but nothing happened until after those shots were fired. Federal law enforcement sources tell us a local police officer even took a photo of the suspect and flagged it to state police about an hour or half an hour before.
An hour or half an hour, his picture was taken, flagged. Okay? So I want you to remember that information, because naturally, Secret Service was supposed to be guarding Mr. Trump. But the information here, plus the information I'm going to bring to you, will put a new spin and a new light on accountability. Because common sense would tell you that a person cannot be in two places at the same time. Two, you have to count how many people were hired for the detail. All that's going to matter. And if the detail knew it wasn't enough of them, did they tell Trump this? Because you have to also take responsibility for yourself to say, well, I'm going out in the middle of nowhere, no man's land, farmland, and you just can't assume something bad would not happen. That's just my ideology, okay? Because we still don't have a head count of how many Secret Service were on the detail. And when you look at the drone footage, which naturally, you're only really getting bits and pieces of a drone footage of the general area. It's in the middle of nowhere. And when I bring you the information I'm going to bring you, you're going to question how he got in, the information you're hearing now, him being flagged 30 minutes to an hour beforehand. He also was there at around 3 o'clock. The show didn't start until 5. Information about purchasing a ladder, so on and so forth. You're going to ask yourself, is all that's going to just be on the Secret Service, because the Secret Service were not the ones checking him in and checking the other guests in. That's the point. The Secret Service cannot be everywhere. They're responsible for him, Mr. Trump, but they can't be everywhere. And I think anybody with sense would know that, especially when you look at the demographics of where it took place. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's in farm country. You have to use deduction. Because when I saw the area view, you have outbuildings where the police were posted up, same building where the shooter was on top of that building. And then when you go back behind there, that stretches out into other people's property. So anybody could just have walked themselves up. So that's the point. How far back should the security have gone? And if you don't have enough people, if you're just going to rely on Secret Service, you would have to have had a multitude of Secret Service individuals. And I'm not even talking 20 and 30. I'm talking about, yes, like they said, at least a mile's worth of Secret Service agents. And you're talking about spreading them out from entry point coming onto the property itself that you're holding the function, and then back out onto the rest of the property, whoever owns all the rest of the properties, I don't know. You're talking about vast land. That is the reason why they called in other agencies to help. So now you got to ask how many other agencies were on the ground besides Secret Service. Butler Sheriff's Department, and then who else? Because this is a small town of 13,000 residents. I think you can use deduction. It was not a lot of people as far as the Sheriff's Department or the local police department. Seriously, you would have to have a lot of people. And I'm not even about to sit here and guesstimate how many people would have been needed to be on that property. The plan. How far back does this plan go? I'm going to read you some information. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $DeGanji129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome during the live stream. CNN.com is the source. How far does this plan go back? I got information today that on July 3rd, it was announced that Donald Trump would be going to Butler, Pennsylvania. I believe this was his second time visiting this area. And he also had been made some stops in Pennsylvania. Let me make sure I get my notes. So I have a lot of them. Excuse me. Hold on, everybody. So I want to make sure I repeat everything correctly. He had been to Pennsylvania a few times within the year, Donald Trump. Okay? And the first information released that he would be going to Butler was July 3rd. So you're talking about 10 days or less of an announcement. So this was a plan that got into motion less than a week, or a little over a week, rather. Because you really don't know the date that he bought the items. So we'll just say 10 days or less. When did he actually put the plan in motion, Thomas? He goes by the name Tom. Trump shooter requested Saturday off from work and told colleagues he'd be back at work Sunday, officials say. The shooter who attempted to assassinate former President Donald Trump on Saturday normally would have been at work that day, but he told his boss he needed that day off because he had something to do, according to multiple law enforcement officials. Thomas Matthew Crooks told his co-workers he will be back to work on Sunday. While investigators have not been able to identify a motive for Crooks' attack at the rally in Butler County, Pennsylvania, they are piecing together more of his activities. By 3 p.m. on Saturday, roughly 3 hours before the shooting, Crooks was at the security screening area for the rally. He first aroused suspicion when he passed through the magnetometers carrying a rangefinder, which looks similar to a small pair of binoculars and is used by hunters and target shooters to measure distances when setting up a long-range shot, according to a senior law enforcement official briefed on the investigation. The rangefinder would not have prevented Crooks from getting through the security screening point, but it did attract the attention of security personnel who kept an eye on him until he left the secure area. This right here is where I have a problem, because I weigh everything out before I form my opinion on who did what and who didn't do something. Right here, the metal detector would have gone off, I guess, for this gadget. So what were they thinking, and what did they say to him about the gadget? And what was his response if they said something? In order for you to keep your eye on him, that means you drew suspicion from the gadget itself. That means you also knew what the gadget was. So what did they say to him about the gadget? See, this is a problem right here, because right now all the blame is on the Secret Service, but he had to be checked in. And obviously Secret Service wasn't the ones checking him in. So you have to start at the beginning of the story, like I always say, when you talk about true crime. Secret Service didn't check the people coming in. That was the job of local law enforcement. So when we pass blame to say, well, it's all the Secret Service, they're supposed to be watching them. Yes, but you have to have a start. And a start is being checked in. So somebody has to check a person in. You allowed him in with that gadget and just decided whomever this person is, he, she, they, whomever, will watch him. But see, that makes no sense to even say, we'll keep an eye on him. How could you keep an eye on him with thousands of people there? I don't even know the head count of how many people were there. This is why I said, you always have to start at the beginning of the story. The beginning is checkpoints coming into the arena. Not during, not after, but before. And when you look at the people who were there, because like I said, this is farmland. So this is vast land. Don't know, the acreage or none of that. But when you first saw all this unfold, you saw that there were people who weren't even actually in the designated space. They were on the outskirts just listening, because the guy with the red hair who's been infamously talking, he wasn't in the arena. He's on the outskirts talking, from my understanding. So that's the point I've been trying to make to some people, because a lot of people really aren't paying attention to the information. That place is vast, obviously. And the fact that you are supposed to be watching this person because of whatever he had in his pocket, this rangefinder, well, he got out of sight. And the rest of the information I'm going to bring to you is going to be even more baffling. Once again, the rangefinder did not prevent him from being in there, but it did attract attention of the personnel, security personnel, who kept an eye on him until he left the secure area. So basically, once he left their eyesight, he's on his own. Okay? So I want you to think about that. Leave the secure area. Where did he go? Because now they're trying to figure out where he went after that secure area. Investigators are unsure where Crooks went after he left the screening area, but the working theory is that he went to his car to retrieve the rifle. Okay, so let's talk about that. You go through a checkpoint, because I want everybody to think about everything that's being said. Somebody had to check him in. Somebody basically was supposed to keep an eye on him which makes no sense either. If you're going to feel like that, then why even let the person in if you feel like you got to watch them? Okay? He goes somewhere. You don't even know where he went because you weren't really thinking to watch him. But you think he went back to his car to get a rifle. That makes no sense to me. Why am I going to go check myself in and then what? I got to now make my way back out to get the gun. I want somebody to really pay attention to what the Queen is saying and what this information is saying. They assuming who are they? The government? FBI? You think he went and got a gun. And I want everybody to think about that for just a second. You check in and you're going to go right back out to your car and get a big ass gun. And how are you going to get it back in? I'll let that sit right there. Around the same time, witnesses alerted police that Crooks was crawling on the roof of the American Glass Research Building. One of the 4 counter sniper teams observed Crooks looking at their position through the rangefinder, according to the senior law enforcement official. Repeat that. One of the 4 counter sniper teams observed Crooks looking at their position through the rangefinder, according to the senior law enforcement officials. They were looking at him while he was looking at them. Make that make sense? They were looking at him while he was looking at them. And this is somewhere between 3 o'clock, after 3. Mr. Trump wasn't supposed to speak until 5. So he was already there hours ahead of time, inside the arena, checked in and all. Crooks gained access to the rooftop by climbing on top of the building's air conditioning system and hosting himself up, according to a senior federal law enforcement official briefed on the investigation. Around 11 p.m., Crooks' father reported him missing. Law enforcement officials told CNN his father told agents that he believed his son had taken the rifle Saturday to go to the shooting range and thought he would be back around 1 p.m., the sources said. Okay. After the shooting, multiple law enforcement sources said investigators found a bulletproof vest, 3 fully loaded magazines, and 2 remote control explosive devices in Crooks' car. Investigators are uncertain as to whether Crooks had a plan to use the body armor. Nearly 100 rounds of additional ammunition from those loaded magazines and 2 remote control bombs had he escaped after the shooting. Additionally, after a search of his residence, investigators discovered another bulletproof vest, another remote control explosive device, a 3D printer, says the sources. In the last several months, Crooks received multiple packages, including some marked as possibly containing hazardous materials. According to a joint FBI and Department of Homeland Security bulletin. This story has been updated with additional information. CNN is the source. So, we have a person who requested a day off from work that Saturday, which was the 13th of July. We get information that Trump announced he was going to this location in Butler, or let's say Butler, July 3rd. So we're talking about 9 days or more. 9-10 days, okay? First announcement. Now you got to ask yourself, when did he hear that Trump was coming? I'm trying to stay cohesive because there's a lot to digest. When did he decide that he was going to go to this arena to shoot Donald Trump? When did he get the news and when did he make the decision? The fact that he got packages months before, well, Trump hadn't announced he was going to Butler. And also, nobody would have known that he was going to the fairgrounds, or to these farmer grounds, okay? That's why I want everybody to pay attention to the information. Thomas would not have known that. Thomas would not have known he was coming to Butler months before. So if these packages were marked, some of them marked hazardous, Why are you ordering hazardous materials? What are those hazardous materials? Are these the materials that were used to make the bombs, the things that were found in the trunk, and also devices found at the house? So was he planning mass destruction to someone or something months before? Because Trump had not announced months before, to my understanding. I made sure to research when it was announced that he was going to Butler. Okay? So you got to look at all of the information. Trump announces on the 3rd, or it's announced to the public he's going to Butler, but it does not say he's going to the fairgrounds, farmer's ground. Okay? So you have to think about all of that information. The announcement around the 3rd. When did Thomas get the announcement? When did he put the plan in motion? And why did he buy explosives and hazardous materials, months before, which Trump wouldn't have been on his radar, I don't assume. Because we don't really know anything. And right now, there's nothing definitive about Thomas. Any searches, any rhetoric, nothing so far. So you have to count all of that. Because they always tell you that when you want to research something about who a person is and what they've been doing, you don't start at that day. You don't even start 5 days back. You go back months. And if you don't have anything on social media, any data searches, any data in the phone conversations, text messages, Google searches, now you're trying to go in the belly of the beast to figure out who Thomas Crooks is and what led him to Butler on this fateful day. Because somebody did lose their life. When did he put the plan in motion? Thank you for joining me. Now I'll bring you some more information. USAtoday.com is my third source. Thomas Matthew Crooks wasn't an ex-CIA agent with a homemade gun that could slip through metal detectors. He didn't carry an Uzi and wear a black tuxedo. He was not a professional killer like the ones depicted in those movies or like Jason Bourne or John Wick. Crooks was an isolated ginger with an associate's degree who worked a low-wage job and lived with his parents. Yet in an increasingly online world where digital surveillance is easier than ever, the 20-year-old managed to stay unusually hidden while devising a plan to murder a former U.S. president nearly successfully in just 10 days of planning. Butler, Pennsylvania, population 13,000, would not have been the most likely campaign stop for Donald Trump. In fact, he had visited just once before his infamous July 13 rally on Halloween night in the days leading up to the November 2020 election. So we're talking about Trump visiting this place years beforehand. And this state gave him the vote. I believe it was 2016, but he didn't get the vote for 2020 election. Okay. Thousands of red-hatted supporters cheered as he took the stage set up next to the Pittsburgh Butler Regional Airport. It wasn't until July 3rd that the Butler Eagle and other outlets reported that Trump would become the first ever president, current or former, to return to the city for a second rally. Okay? So here you have the information. Trump had not been to the city in a long time, this jurisdiction, years ago. This was his second time returning to the area for a rally. Until that point, there would have been no way to predict that this rally would be held at the Butler Farm Showgrounds. Is everybody hearing this information? There would have been no way to predict that this rally would be held at the Butler Farm Showgrounds. So you have to ask yourself, what made Trump pick this venue to go to? Did he not assess the situation and the vastness of the land? Because you're talking about farmland, you're in the middle of nowhere. And this is what I think a lot of people are not focusing on. It is understood the Secret Service was supposed to guard him, but you're not thinking logically you're in the middle of nowhere and you're not assessing a worst case scenario because one, this place is not closed up like what you have at the RNC or amphitheater that's closed up. This is a wide range outdoor space. It's land. That's all it is. Outside land. So what you have here, it's not the same as what you have with the RNC where it's closed up. You can walk through, do sweeps, look under, chairs, look in vents, look in closets. You're outside. You're outside. You're in the open. And when you are outside, a multitude of things can jump off for that very reason, because you are outdoors. And you don't even have, hell, let's keep it real, secure borders to keep migrants out. So now imagine you're in the United States on open land and you do not have it secure enough to keep out just a random person or persons, hell, it could be a group of people, deciding to bum rush a function and wreak havoc. And I don't think anybody is thinking about that. You're not even thinking that it could have been a group of people who could have bum rushed and came through. Just bringing you the facts. Once again, there would have been no way to predict the rally would be held at Butler Farm Showgrounds, putting the Republican nominee for president 54 miles from the Crooks family home, 54 miles away. Or that Secret Service agents and local police would leave the rooftop of an industrial building 150 yards from Trump's podium unmanned. So let's go there. Allegedly, men were in the building. How many men were inside of the building where the perpetrator was on top of the roof? Why were they inside? What were they doing in there? Was somebody really in there? People are going to say, hell, it doesn't matter. Why wasn't somebody on top of the roof? Very good question. Because sweeping an area doesn't really mean anything once you leave the area, okay? Once again, Secret Service agents and local police would leave the rooftop of an industrial building 150 yards from Trump's podium unmanned. Hours before the shooting, Crooks stopped at a Home Depot in his hometown of Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, purchased a ladder, CNN and NBC reported. Somewhere outside the rally venue, he parked a car with an explosive device in the trunk. Although cops were reportedly stationed inside the building that houses a company that manufactures equipment for the bottle industry, Crooks appears to have climbed on top with an AR-15 style gun, undetected, until some in the crowd spied him and began pointing and shouting. So now let's go here. Once again, if there were people in the building, you didn't hear anybody climbing on top of the roof. It's a metal roof. It's not like brick. So nobody heard somebody crawling up the roof. And he's also carrying an AR-15 style gun, which is metal. You want me to believe the metal gun did not bump up against the building, number one, to scale it. Number two, to crawl across it. Stay woke, everybody. So where were the people who were supposed to be inside of the building? Because you had to have heard something going on top of that roof, unless there was nobody in the building. And why were you in the building? Because you can't watch outside from inside. The security failures by law enforcement that day helped him look a lot more sophisticated than he would normally, said Seamus Hughes, a researcher at the National Counterterrorism Innovation, Technology, and Education Center at the University of Nebraska, Omaha. If you had put an agent on the roof as opposed to in the building, it goes from a very sophisticated attack to a very foolish attack. Some would say, yes. Had you had somebody up there on all of the roofs, this man would have been seen coming up and probably shot on the spot, allegedly. Still, Hughes said it seems clear that Crooks demonstrated a level of sophistication, plotting the attack on short notice without amassing an internet footprint, delineating any ideology, or even hitting law enforcement's radar. That's what makes Crooks so unique, Hughes said. In this day and age, that's quite a feat. Smart kid who liked to shoot guns but was a bad shot. Crooks grew up in a 3-bedroom brick house with a covered porch and wood deck in Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. It's a suburb near Pittsburgh where the median household income is $100,000 and grass yards blend together without fences. His parents were licensed counselors, dad a libertarian, mom a Democrat. He had a sister, also a libertarian, 2 grades older. His own political leanings remain unclear. He donated $15 to Act Blue, a political action committee supporting Democrats, in January of 2021, the day of President Joseph Biden's inauguration. 8 days after his 18th birthday, that September, Crooks registered to vote in Allegheny County as a Republican. As a kid, Crooks wore patriotic shirts like the ash gray Mount Rushmore t-shirt he chose for his sophomore year yearbook photo. He liked to shoot guns. He and his father were members of the Clareton Sportsman Club, situated atop a wooded plateau 8 miles from his home. It's a sprawling 180-acre complex with rifle, pistol, archery, and competition ranges, a dog training area, clubhouse, and more than 2,000 local members. It also has safety classes and youth activities. Some former classmates described Crooks as a loner, a smart kid who kept to himself and had few friends. He went by Tom, said Sean Eckert, who went to school with him in Bethel Park from 5th through 12th grade. He rarely spoke up in class. He often wore hunting clothes. Eckert said he didn't remember Crooks playing any sports, belonging to any clubs or student groups, or going to school events. Jason Kohler, who attended Bethel Park High School with Crooks, said he sat alone at lunch and was bullied every day. Kids picked on him for wearing camouflage and for his quiet demeanor, Kohler said. Others, though, insisted he was not bullied at all. Colin Saffer, who had known Crooks since elementary school, said they both tried out for the Bethel Park High School rifle team their freshman year. Kohler said Crooks couldn't compete with his peers and was asked to leave because he was a bad shot. A year before he earned his diploma in spring of 2022, Crooks dual enrolled at community college in Allegheny County in Pittsburgh, studying engineering science. He also worked as a dietary aide at a nearby nursing home, a food preparation job that paid $16 an hour, according to the job listing, a job listing. He completed his associate's degree in May, school officials said, graduating with high honors and no discipline record. He planned to enroll at Robert Morris University in the fall. This summer, Crooks was still too young to buy a beer, but he could legally buy an AR-15 online or at one of a half dozen gun stores within 5 miles of his home. He didn't need to, though, according to FBI officials. He used his dad's. What happened Saturday, July 13th? So it's just recounting what happened with the spectators. People talking about somebody was up on the roof. Video posted to social media. While Mr. Trump speaking in the background, somebody was yelling, officer, officer, he's on the roof. Man with long brown hair, beige shirt, pants can be seen lying prone, upwards slanting on the roof, adjusting his position, apparently unconcerned about the people yelling and pointing at him and the police officer looking in his direction. Crooks began shooting nearly a minute and a half after the shouts, a Washington Post analysis found. He fired at least 5 shots, one whizzing past Trump's head, nicking his ear. Bullets struck 3 rally-goers seated in the line of fire. 1 man was killed. Mike Mullen of the Gibsonian area in Allegheny County, a delegate representing U.S. House District 17, was standing about 20 feet to the left of the presidential candidate when shots rang out. It sounded like fireworks at first, McMullen said. Then he saw Trump hit the deck, holding his ear, and Secret Service agents piled on top of him. It was pure pandemonium, McMullen said. Seconds later, Secret Service agent fired 1 shot at Crooks, killing him. An AR-style rifle was found next to his body. The t-shirt he was wearing bore the logo of Demolition Ranch, a YouTube channel with 11 million subscribers hosted by a gun influencer. Authorities would find a suspicious device in his car. The guy who has that YouTube channel has spoken out pertaining to that information, this attack on Donald Trump and others, and I will play that information as well. Motive remains elusive as investigation unfolds. Law enforcement officials remain flummoxed so far about Crooks' motive. multiple news outlets reported. Although they gained access to his phone, CNN reported they still haven't found evidence of a political or ideological impetus, and that his search history did not show he had researched homemade explosives. So now you have to ask that question. Where did he learn to make explosives? Because you don't have anything detailing searches over the years on his devices, iPad, computer. How did he learn to make bomb materials? What were the hazardous materials that he ordered months before? So this wouldn't have been possibly on the Trump radar, Trump itinerary. Was he planning to have a mass destruction somewhere in Pennsylvania or in the state, out of the state? You have to ask all the questions with the information that has been allotted to you. Because I'm sure there are thousands of questions pertaining to Mr. Crooks. But that's one of my questions. He ordered hazardous materials months before. Trump did not announce he was coming to Butler or Pennsylvania in general until July 3rd. Stay woke, everybody. Once again, no search history pertaining to how to make the homemade explosives. In some ways, Crooks resembles a typical mass shooter, said Hughes. Namely, he was young, male, apparently a loner. But in other ways, Crooks seems to buck trends. Those who threaten public officials are typically twice Crooks' age, whereas more than 2/3 have documented criminal histories documented criminal histories. Crooks has none. So we have a young man with no criminal background, has not been in trouble with the law, has not been spewing any rhetoric, no social media posts, hooping and hollering about Trump, this, that. So what happened? How did it come to be that he made his way to Butler, Pennsylvania, with no detailed data to show any rhetoric? Very interesting. The National Counterterrorism Innovation Technology, where Hughes' work studies such threats. Among people arrested on federal charges for threatening public officials, those with an ideological bent veered toward right-wing, racially motivated, and often misogynistic or religious violent extremism. That profile extends to the man who killed 10 black people at a Buffalo supermarket and the man who killed 11 Jewish people at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. But of the 503 arrested individuals, more than half did not display any ideological bent, Hughes said, which can be frustrating for the public and law enforcement to accept. In that way, he said, Crooks more closely resembles the man who shot more than 400 people at a Las Vegas music concert, killing 60, whose motive police still don't understand. He may fall in this category of what we call the Joker effect. Hughes said, some people want to become infamous, or they just want to watch the world burn. USA Today is the source. Very valid point. Please check out my extensive library and my shorts, because this is where I ask these questions. Well, Britt, it happens. Some comments won't post. I've had my own comments won't post in the comment box. YouTube is very funny about what you post. So if I go live from my phone, YouTube automatically monitors the chat. It mods the chat when I go live from the phone. So sometimes your comments won't post there. And I guess obviously they don't post even here in the StreamYard. As I was saying, some people want to be famous. So now that we have information that he bought items, excuse me, not even plugged up. Now that we find out he bought items months before that were deemed hazardous, some items, don't know what those are, you have to now use deduction that possibly he wanted to exact harm to somebody's, not necessarily Donald Trump, as you heard this man speaking here, with the shooter that shot all those people in Las Vegas years ago. No rhyme, no reason. And I remember them going to the brother's house to talk to him. The brother had a really nice home, lived very nice. He didn't understand what was going on with his brother, blah, blah, blah. He was dating some Asian lady. She didn't know what was going on, because that's the point. Everybody don't just go out and say, hey, I'm getting ready to go shoot up a crowd of people. Hey, I'm going to shoot the sitting president or former president. That's what you're expecting them to do. But you don't know people. That's the point. So this guy had no friends, allegedly. I'm going to bring you that content. Obviously didn't hang out with people, but at least, hey, he worked. He had a job, so he wasn't just sitting around playing video games all day. Not trying to, put him on a pedestal. But what I'm saying is he was doing something constructive. But yet, what happened in the mindset to get to this point of a person holding down a job, getting an associate's degree, getting ready to go to a university to end up in this situation here? As this man said, could be he wants to go out as somebody who's done something. Nobody's noticed me before. Nobody paid attention to me before. You will notice me now. As they're calling it, the Joker effect, wherever they got that from. Is that the case here with Thomas Crooks? Nobody's noticed me. Nobody's paid attention to me. I have not been important to anybody, but you will notice me now. And the fact that he told coworkers he was going to go back to work means he wasn't trying to go out in a ball of fire and get shot. Because I was going to ask that question. Did he plan on unaliving himself or anticipated being unalive? So in his mindset, he thought he was going to go exact this crime of killing Donald Trump and walk his way back to his car and go back to work on Sunday. Because he's told his job, I need today off, but I'll be back tomorrow. I'll see you guys tomorrow. So maybe he was a narcissist. I'm going to do something one day. That was the purpose of buying those hazardous materials months ago. I don't know yet who I'm going to hurt or harm, but I'm going to do something. So when did he put in his mind that he wanted to, one, cause mass destruction? Because the hazardous materials makes no sense either. He bought those months ago. So you could take Trump off that list, because he wouldn't have known that Trump was going to be coming to Pennsylvania. So that means he already had in his mind, he wanted to do something to someone. So was this just an opportunity that arose? 10 days to plan a crime, buying online ammunition, buying ammunition that day, buying a ladder next day, ammunition next day. I think this was just an opportunity. An opportunity to do something. He took advantage of the opportunity, let's say, because now you got to try to put together when he put it in motion. When did he put it in motion? That this is the person I want to harm, and then why? As I put those shorts up, because it's easier to do the 15-second shorts when you have so many questions you're asking in your head pertaining to a crime story. You, the public, myself, always want to know why. The district attorney will tell you that in a crime that goes to court, a trial. People want to know why, so I got to give them a why. Why you do it? Why she do it? So that's where people are sitting now. How and why? Secret Service, he got on the roof, police were there, killed a man, injured others, injured Trump. And I think he has something to prove as well. That's why I want you to check out my shorts, because I meticulously ask every question I could think of. Now I've got more to put in the shorts now with this new information. Why? Does there have to be a why? You're looking for a why. What do I always tell you about true crime? Don't ask why, ask why not. You have to get into the head of the perpetrator, which some people don't want to do that because it's too murky, too muddy in there if I get into the belly of the beast. But that's the only way you're going to be able to understand Thomas Crooks and anybody else who exacts a crime such as this. You've got to get in the belly of the beast. You got to get in the mind of the perpetrator. Why not do this? Because you got to know Thomas Crooks. And his family don't even know why. They're trying to grapple with, number one, their son has done this, why he's done this. He has not been in trouble with the law. He has not left a blueprint, allegedly, of any crazy ideologies. No ranting and raving about Trump. No ranting and raving about the world. Maybe that's what he was, just a silent killer, a silent ranter, a silent person who's angry, bitter, mad at the world. We get information that allegedly he was bullied, not bullied, didn't make the rifle club. As I said before, could this be an issue of him saying, I got a point to prove to you all. I'm going to show you I can shoot the shot. You didn't let me in that rifle club, but I'm going to do you one better. So is that the reason why he kept fooling with the guns, joining the gun club, perfecting his shot? Because he knew that one day he would show the world that he could shoot. I'm not trying to get analytical, but I'm just trying to make it make sense. Because as I said, you got to get in the mind of the perpetrator for it to make sense. Because it doesn't have to make sense to you why he would go do this. That's the point. It doesn't have to make sense to you. It doesn't have to be right. We know it's not right to go out here and murder people. We know this. But we also know that people can put themselves in situations to get shot, to get hurt, just by minding their business. Rhetoric they put out to the world. And this is why I keep talking about accountability. You can put yourself in a situation to get hurt. Because Butler, Pennsylvania is in the middle of nowhere. Ain't nothing shaking out there. That's farmland. So Trump chose this place. Number one, why? Number two, did they explain to him their detail? Lack thereof. Because in the end, Trump had to make the final decision to go out there. And that's something that nobody's talking about. Everybody's talking about Secret Service, but they didn't do. But I don't think you have took an area view of this land. It's vast land. It's farmland. Flat. About see for miles. Did someone tell Trump, this is probably not a good idea? We don't have the manpower for such acreage. Because when you look at the drone footage, you have outbuildings, trees, and nothing but land. And then past those outbuildings are homes. I saw homes in the background way, way, way far off. I said anybody could have just decided to just walk their ass onto the land. Because you got to remember, the people you see hollering and screaming near the outbuilding where the perpetrator was, they weren't right in the arena where the seats are seated and the rafters. So people looking around didn't necessarily know what was going on over there at the outbuildings. How could they know? They're waiting for the speaker to come on. So you probably had people scattered everywhere in this arena. Inside of the checkpoints. 9 times out of 10, you had people outside of the checkpoints who weren't inside. So you had people everywhere in this circumference. So we don't even really know the actual acreage. And that's where you have the problem that nobody wants to address. You're on farmland. And you've only designated a small little space for rafters, bleachers, chairs, a podium, stage, and the rest is vast land. And they're sitting here trying to figure out, where's the ladder? How did he get on top of the building? Well, he scaled it from the air conditioning unit. And I mentioned this in the live the other day. I said, when you look at the area view of the buildings, there's a little cubby hole in the middle where anybody could have sat in there and lied in wait and just hid out. You'd have to scale this little short wall. But from the area view, you could see it's like a little square box inside between the buildings. Anybody could have hid right in there. You wouldn't even know they were in there. They could have just sat down, squatted down, and sat down. You would have never seen them. Then you got to think about it's a Saturday. Business probably wasn't open. So flow traffic is nil. None. Allegedly, officers are in the building. but you're not on top of the building. You're not on top of any of the other outbuildings. That was for the Secret Service to say, hey, we need officers up there or Secret Service up there. So when they say a Secret Service person shot him, I'm just confused. Well, who really shot him? Secret Service or a police officer? So what are you saying? You have Secret Service in regular clothes, fatigue clothes? I don't understand. I don't understand. Well, War Eagle, they don't think he used the I've already mentioned that. They don't think he used the ladder. That's why I'm getting ready to get to that. Where was the ladder? So this is why I'm saying that nobody is paying attention to the information, because right now everybody is going off about the Secret Service. You're not paying attention. See, I look at everything. I don't jump on the bandwagon with everybody else. That's why a lot of people don't want to hear what I have to say. That's fine. Because as I tell people, if I was to listen to everybody else, I'd be dead right now. I think for Queen. And everything I've thought may not be right, but I think outside the box. And that's what a lot of people are not doing pertaining to this debacle with Trump. Your focus is on the Secret Service, but that's not logical when you look at the area. This was not a closed up venue. You are outside in the middle of nowhere. A person could have been in a tree. You wouldn't have never known in a full bloom tree. That's why I keep trying to tell people nobody's paying attention. You got to explain how he got through with the rangefinder. They flagged it, said they were suspicious, yet you still didn't watch him. So now he's walking around, looking at everything, assessing everything. That's probably what he was doing, watching everybody, looking at everybody. He's looking to see who's perched on top of the buildings. He's watched all of this. And 9 times out of 10, he's already been over there looking at the place when he made the decision to go to this farmland. So this is why I said, when did he make the decision to assassinate Donald Trump? How many times did he make a trip over there? Because it's 1 hour away. So when did he go? Because doing Google searches is not enough. You need to be on the ground if you're going to exact this type of crime. He bought a ladder, but we don't know that the ladder was actually there. So this is why I'm saying you got to know when he decided in his head, I'm getting ready to go to Butler. I'm getting ready to go buy the ammunition. I'm getting ready to go take the ladder. We don't even know where the ladder is. Because you got to use common sense. Don't you think that would be obvious walking into a secure area with a ladder and an AR-15? And naturally, when he walked in the checkpoint, he did not have a ladder. He did not have the AR-15. So once he got in the checkpoint, they're assuming he doubled back to his car. But that's where that's a problem. Because how are you going to go through a checkpoint and then make your way back out to go get the gun and hide the gun? How? Somebody needs to talk to the Queen and tell the Queen how he exited back out of the arena to go get the gun and then make his way back in with the gun without being seen, getting on top of a building. Because he's got to be able to go through a checkpoint again with the gun or a gun and a ladder to make his way across a lot of grass. As I told people, nobody knows the acreage because nobody's giving an estimate of how far it takes to get from the checkpoint into the arena, past the arena to the outbuildings. And if you're paying attention to the story, you would know that he could have came in any 360 degrees onto the property without going through a checkpoint. Bingo card. Ain't nobody talking about that. Because everybody's focused on the Secret Service. But you're not focusing on the land itself, and that you would have to have a lot of manpower on the ground, damn near foot to elbow, like you're doing a grid search of a body. And they don't have that kind of money for Donald Trump. That's the point of the story that nobody's paying attention to. He didn't have the detail because he's not a sitting president. And that's something I focused on when I was watching the news the other day, when the guy was reading the notes and he was saying he's not a sitting president. So his detail is not the same. That is why you had this event to jump off. They knew they didn't have the detail. That's why they asked the police to help man the ground. It wasn't enough. So somebody should have told Trump that. We don't have enough manpower for the acreage. We've got 360 ways you could come onto this property that's not gated up. It's farmland. And this is why I'm so shocked at how everybody's behaving, that you thought that these people could sit here and watch every corner of farmland when you could do an area search and see, man, it's big. It's huge as hell. And you can see houses in the background from the outbuildings. So anybody could have just took a long stroll and say, hey, let me go up here and see what's going on up here at this Trump rally. And they would already be in the midst of the property, just like how he somehow got himself on top of that damn outbuilding. Bottom line, this kid had been to that location before, in my opinion. Like you said, no way he would go not somewhat prepared. Exactly. And when you look at the drone footage, which you're only getting just a little bit of the drone footage, because you literally would have to be up in a damn airplane to really just see how big the land is, but you can use your imagination. It's farmland. It's vast. It's just like any rural place in America. You're talking about land, acres and acres and acres of land. So if I can see houses far back from the outbuildings, what would that tell you? That a person could have walked from the house onto the land and just kept walking. And next thing you know, they're at the outbuilding. Ding, 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 ding. Why isn't nobody seeing this? You would have to have, as I just said, an abundance of people on the ground to man the land. He didn't have that kind of detail. So that was a problem Trump should have been addressing with them, and they should have addressed it with Trump. We don't have the manpower because anybody can just walk up on the land from this house way back here and just walk up to the fucking outbuilding and could have done the same damn thing without even going through a checkpoint. That's my point. And nobody is wanting to address that because it's too easy to throw daggers and say, well, it's all the Secret Service. But it's like, have you seen the area view of the property? You're on top of vast land with acres and acres and acres, meaning anybody could have came from anywhere and made their way up to the peripheral to try to get a shot of him or whomever. And he didn't spray the room. So if he really wanted to shoot a lot of people, he could have. When the officer crawled up to look up there, he could have killed him, Johnny, on the spot. But he didn't want to do that because he knew that would draw attention. Had he shot that police officer, he wouldn't have been able to take an aim at Donald Trump. That was his target. That was why he was there, for whatever reason. Trump was his target because he could have easily shot that guy who came up. They said he fell down. So obviously he couldn't try to hold on to the building and try to pull a gun out to shoot the guy. Maybe he got startled. I can't speak for that police officer. But you all need to start at the beginning, and nobody wants to start at the beginning. Everybody wants to start at the point that he shot the shot. That's not the beginning of the story. Well, that would have made more sense, Ed, to have it on an inside structure. That's why I said, if you go look at the drone footage of the area, in your right mind, you would tell yourself this was not a good idea. This was not a good idea. Once I saw the drone footage, I really didn't have to see the drone footage because I live in America. I know what rural America is. And you can get on people's property by going through the woods, going through the forest. Common sense, common sense. So you use deduction. You're on farmland. If you walk for miles, you're going to end up on somebody's land, somebody's private property. So you have houses scattered, in the background. Anybody could have walked out their own backyard, front yard, and walked their way up to those outbuildings. What was keeping them from doing it? Nothing. There's no barrier. There's no walls. There's no gates. It's farmland. So they didn't properly secure that thing, like somebody said on the news, for at least a mile. And west, east, south, north. They didn't do that. So once again, who is everybody mad at? I'm just keeping it real. Who are you really mad at? Because there's no way you would have that type of manpower for that amount of acres of land. You're talking about, as I just said, you would have to have, oh my God, hundreds and hundreds of officers, foot to foot, elbow to elbow, because the way the land is situated. It's land. It's land, it's trees, it's grass. Outbuildings on top of land. Land. And people are doing their own thing, not thinking there's going to be a shooter. Why would they think that? This wasn't planned properly. It was not a good idea to have a rally on vast land. That's just common sense. Because you have too many entry points to enter the arena. You roped it off. You did a checkpoint. But you can't explain to us how he got back on the property with an AR-15. So that's my point. I proved my point. Matter of fact, Thomas proved the point. He proved the point. You didn't man this properly because it's too wide open for one. And he knew that. That's why he took advantage of going there. Whether he Google searched, he drove over there, he looked around, he walked around, he surveyed the area, he used deduction. And I don't care what anybody says. He used deduction well. Nobody can say that he didn't because he did. He used deduction quite well. Because you can judge it however you see fit. He made way on there, checkpoint, raised the flag. Nobody followed him around. You couldn't have followed him around because he made his way on top of that damn building, and you got to explain how the fuck he got that damn AR-15 over there after being checked in. Now, here comes the clincher that nobody's talking about either. Who's to say he didn't already have the gun planted somewhere? Bingo card. They also believe, yes, that was going to be used as a decoy. Set off for distraction, explosives in the car. Now you got to ask yourself about the explosives at the house. What were you going to do with those? What was his full plan, Thomas Matthew Crooks? See, I asked all the questions, and all these fancy people are on the news talking counterterrorism, but they're talking around in circles. You're talking about who he is and what he did in the 10th grade, 11th grade. What you should be focusing on is the land and why Trump decided to go there and why somebody didn't tell Donald Trump, I don't think this is a good idea because of the vastness of the land and we don't have the manpower for the acreage. That's common sense. Just like every state neighbors a state, okay? So if every state neighbors a state, then every town neighbors a town. Every city neighbors a city. So what does that tell you about where they were? Every property neighbors another property. Bingo card. So why are you shocked? Anybody could have walked up there and did what they did. Because it wasn't contained properly. And I'm trying to understand why Secret Service didn't tell him this is too big. Anybody could come from any area. Somebody could have came and flew a plane over, a helicopter, a tractor trailer. Somebody could have came with a bulldozer. Hello, you're in farm country. Could have been a group of guys. Could have been a group came in a school bus, motorcycles, cars, and just bum rushed the place. Nobody's thinking. You're expecting 6 or 7 Secret Service people to just man him up at the post. That's the post. That's not all of the fucking area. I'm sure right now, if they give us a demographic of how spread out that area, a lot of people would probably be really choked up like, oh, I didn't know it was that big. It's farmland. You're only putting a piece of chairs and rafters and a stage on acres of land. Come on now. And you weren't thinking of a worst case scenario? That's what's baffling to me. But who's to say that somebody didn't have this talk with Donald Trump? Because he's a very combative individual. And a lot of you just don't want to own that. He's headstrong. He's combative. Somebody probably said to him, we would need more people that we don't have. This is probably not a good idea. You know what the assumption was? Oh, this is a safe place. They don't have high crime. We're all right. But you weren't all right because you weren't prepared for the lone gunman who made his way on that land with an AR-15, mind you. So what you got to ask yourself is, how did he get through the checkpoint? Because he did make it through. But how did he get that gun past the checkpoint? Yeah, they called it 11 o'clock. The deed was already done by then, sweetheart. They called it 11 p.m. that he was missing. Let me finish my commentary, everybody. Thank you for joining me. USA Today was the last source of that information. So I've read your information from, CNN, USA Today. And now we're going to go to CNN.com. Well, they said War Eagle, they're saying that he did. But the point is he had the double back, or he already had the weapon somewhere hid. Take your pick. Shooting range, gun store, ladder purchase, tracking the Trump rally gunman's movements leading up to his attack. This was uploaded Monday. In the 48 hours before he opened fire on former President Donald Trump, 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks made a series of stops in and around his suburban Pittsburgh hometown. On Friday, he went to a shooting range where he was a member, practiced firing, law enforcement official told CNN. Next morning, Crooks went to a Home Depot where he bought a 5-foot ladder and a gun store where he purchased 50 rounds of ammunition, the official said. Then Crooks drove his Hyundai Sonata about an hour north, joining thousands of people from around the region who flocked to Trump's rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. He parked the car outside the rally with an improvised explosive device hidden in the trunk that was wired to a transmitter he carried, the official said. Then investigators believe he used his newly bought ladder to scale a nearby building and open fire on the former president. As investigators continue to search for a motive behind the attempted assassination. They are scrutinizing Crooks' movements before the attack and trying to piece together a timeline of his actions leading up to it. Yet nearly 48 hours after the shooting, investigators are struck by the lack of leads they're finding about Crooks' mindset and possible motives. Even after successfully breaking into his phone and searching his computer, scouring his search history and bedroom, and interviewing his family and friends, agents still haven't found evidence that would suggest political or ideological impetus for the shooting, says law enforcement to CNN. Instead, the evidence they have found appears to show typical online activities, including an interest in computer coding and gaming, the sources said, and that has raised more questions. In a sign that his attack could have been even more destructive, Crooks had a remote-controlled detonator on his body, and his car's trunk contained a metal box of explosives that was connected with wires to a receiver, the law enforcement source said. That suggests the gunman may have been planning to set off an explosion remotely, and investigators are considering the theory that he may have been planning a distraction during the shooting. It's unclear how Crooks assembled the explosive devices found in his car. Investigators parsing through his online search history haven't found any indication of him researching how to make homemade explosives, law enforcement officials said. The AR-style rifle Crooks used to fire on Trump was legally purchased by his father, Matthew Crooks. It was one of more than 20 firearms registered to the elder Crooks, which were kept at the family's home, according to Pennsylvania State Police records reviewed by investigators. The official said all of the guns were legally purchased. The gunman and his father were members of the Clarendon Sportsman Club, a gun club about 25-minute drive from his house, and enjoyed going shooting there together, according to law enforcement officials. Rob Butte, lawyer for the club, confirmed in a statement that the younger Crooks was a member. The club, which has about 2,000 members, features a rifle shooting range that is roughly 200 yards long, according to a CNN analysis of satellite images, longer than the distance between Crooks and Trump, where he fired at the former president while perched on a nearby rooftop. The range is tucked into 180 acres of woodlands in the hills south of Pittsburgh. So now you have to ask yourself, hold on, everybody. Sorry. All right, everybody. Sorry about that. Had a maintenance. They had to check something out. Sorry about that. Okay, where were we? Sorry. I don't know. Like, what happened to her? So we were reading the information. Hold on, you guys. We'll go back to where I was. Sorry about the interruption. Okay. So we were talking about the gun range, 2,000 members, roughly 200 yards. So guess what? The shooting range is roughly 200 yards. So that's more than the range from where he took his shot of Donald Trump. Very interesting. The club fully admonishes the senseless act of violence that occurred, Butte said, adding that he could not make any additional commentary in relation to this matter in light of pending law enforcement investigations. Crooks purchased the 50 rounds of ammunition on the morning of the attack at Allegheny Arms and Gun Works, a local gun store in his hometown of Bethel Park. Senior law enforcement official told CNN. Bruce Pendle, the store's owner, said in a statement that we are thankful that President Trump was not assassinated, and our hearts and prayers go out to all victims of this horrible incident. Spokesperson for Home Depot, where Crooks bought the ladder, said in a statement that we condemn the violence against former President Trump and our thoughts are with him, the other victims of Saturday's horrific events, and their families. It's not clear whether Crooks used the ammunition or the ladder that he bought on Saturday during his attack later that day. So that's very interesting information because he bought the ladder. Where was the ladder? Where is the ladder? Say was. Where is the ladder? He bought the ladder. Where's the ladder? Did they find the ladder near the building? If they didn't find it near the building, where is it? Was it in his car? So see, you got 1,000 questions there because we have not heard any information about where the ladder is. Where is the ladder? Okay. Matthew Crooks did not respond to requests for comment from CNN on Sunday and Monday. On Saturday evening, before officials had publicly confirmed his son's role in the attack, he told CNN that he was trying to figure out what the hell is going on, but would wait until I talked to law enforcement before speaking about his son. FBI investigators succeeded in accessing the younger Crooks' cell phone, the agency said Monday afternoon, while investigators had hoped that breakthrough would help them understand what drove him to attempt to assassinate Trump. They're still struggling to make sense of it, law enforcement officials said. The shooter's parents, who have been cooperating with law enforcement since the shooting, have told investigators that Crooks did not appear to have friends and did not appear to have any political leanings. A law enforcement official told CNN that they didn't seem to know much about what was going on in his life recently, law enforcement said. CNN is the source. So we have parents who are social counselors, social work counselors. One parent is a libertarian, one's a Democrat. Sister is a libertarian, whatever that means. He's a registered Republican, but donated 2021 to a Act Blue campaign. So did he decide to follow the liberal way, but just never changed his status on his voter registration information? Did he have a problem with Donald Trump? One would say, yeah, he must have. But then I said, too, you don't really know people, number one. You don't know his mindset. You don't know what he was going through. You don't know if he was depressed, if he had a point to prove to the world. He wanted to show the world who he is. He wanted to be noticed. He wanted to be seen. He wanted to be infamous. As I said in one of my shorts, I said, could it be Thomas Crooks didn't really have a problem with Donald Trump per se? He just wanted to show the world he existed. He was somebody that went unnoticed. I know how to get the attention of people. I know how to garner attention. Even let's just say he thought in his mind he wasn't going to get caught. He could sit back and revel on knowing he killed this man. Pay very close attention to what I'm saying now. In his mind, he thought he was going to get away with this. So it wasn't a matter of him thinking he was going to go out in a blaze of glory, even though he had, bulletproof vests at the house, in the car, whatever. But maybe in his mind, he told himself, as most narcissists do, I'm going to get away with this And I'm going to sit back and watch all these people scramble around trying to figure out who I am. And I get to revel in what I did. That little guy that everybody made fun of, teased, I was awkward, no girlfriends, no lot of friends. I wasn't active. I wasn't playing football, soccer, track. I didn't make the rifle club. I'll show them. Was this a retribution for some way back, as we call it in the street? Payback for some way back. Okay? So, and he probably did take the ladder there before. He may have taken the gun before. See, that's the thing. There's no way he brought the gun back through the checkpoint. No stupid person would even attempt to walk up with an AR-15, period. Time one, time two. So I'm leaning towards the fact that he didn't take the ladder. He changed his mind maybe, but he took the gun. The problem is, when did he take the gun? That's the issue. How did he get the gun on the property to scale the building? That is the question of the hour. Because if he was checked in, that little thing went off under the radar, under the metal detector, the rangefinder. They still let him go through. Allegedly, we were going to watch him, or he was supposed to be watched. I don't even know if I believe that, because everything I've learned about the world is he said, she said. It's just a matter of what you believe and what you can prove. Somebody said he could have had it disassembled. Well, see, I don't know anything about them. AR-15s that they assemble, disassemble, I have no idea. I know nothing about heavy artillery. But the point we're trying to make is he couldn't have still brought it through the checkpoint. That's the point, sweetheart. So it really don't matter if he could assemble it or not, or disassemble it. He still had to go through a checkpoint. And they're saying they don't know where he went after the checkpoint. That would lead me to believe he possibly could have hid the gun a day before or the morning of somewhere. And he walked somewhere on that land and picked up the gun, either whole or reassembled. This is why I said nobody is paying attention to what is obvious. It was not the best place for a rally, and that's my opinion. That's my opinion. And I don't think I'm quite wrong on my opinion. I think it's obvious. Anybody with sense knows he didn't walk up in the checkpoint with an AR-15. So that means he had to have put the gun somewhere before he checked in. That's obvious. Assembled or disassembled, doesn't matter. Because he would have been floored as soon as he walked up with an AR-15. Come on now. I'm going to drop the link for a little while. I'm about an hour and 28 minutes in. Not trying to hold long. But if you have an opinion pertaining to the information that I've brought to you and that has been revealed pertaining to Thomas Crooks, his family, his movements before the rally, feel free to hit the link. Hello, everybody in the chat. Hello, Cornbread, one of my favorite fans. He's been hanging in with the Queen for some time now, since the Summer Wells case. One thing I've learned about people, a lot of people just don't want to see past go. That's just something I've learned about people. I say this time and time again. When people like a person, they just can't see past anything that could possibly be logical. They just can't. They just can't see past go. I see this all the time. People refuse to accept things that don't line up to how they think it should go or how it actually went. I use deduction and I use common sense in my reasoning in thinking things out. And with all these people talking about this Trump business, these people being killed, one person dead and people injured, nobody is paying attention to what is obvious. The land was too big for this event. You didn't have enough manpower to man the land. The land was its own entity. It is its own entity. Hello, darling. Aloha. The land is its own entity. And you're trying to fight the land per man, and it didn't work. So when we, as people, others who want to blame Secret Service, you're not using common sense. They obviously didn't have enough people, Secret Service agents, to work the land, because the land goes for acres. And somebody on the news said it perfectly. They said, my goodness, when you're talking about bringing in a president or a former president, and even thinking of the possibility that they could be unalive or hurt or harmed or others injured, you have to use common sense. He said the land, the area should have been checked 1 mile. 1 mile. You probably got that alone in the acres that the rally sat on. Come on now. You're out in the middle of nowhere. You're not in the inner city at a movie house or amphitheater that's closed up, some type of structure that's closed up. You're on the outside. So anything can go wrong on the outside. That's just common sense. We all live in a real world, and you hear all these horrible stories of events, festivals, concerts. It's easier to make way and wreak havoc on the outside versus the inside. Okay? It's very easy. I think it's obvious he proved that. Because now you got to prove and show how he got in with the weapon undetected. Cornbread, what's going on? Cornbread, why don't you come up here and talk to the queen for a minute? You have never come up on the panel. I appreciate that, honey. You know, I'm sure there are a lot of people who have not, been in favor of my commentary since this debacle, but I speak from a logical standpoint. A lot of people don't. And it doesn't really matter what the subject is. I see the same type of behavior in the missing person cases, this nonsense with Trump and these people being hurt. Nobody is using any type of common sense. You're just focusing on the Secret Service, but you're not focusing on the land and the acre and them not having enough people to man the land. That was the issue. And that's why I said what I have said. Did they explain that to Donald Trump? We don't have enough people to man this area, because even if we rope off a certain amount of area, a person still could have access to this space. And when I saw the area view, by the drone, I said, ain't nobody talking about the real problem here. Oh, you at work? Okay, sweetie. Thank you. A person could have came from anywhere. Anywhere. Hey, Brooke. Brooke, are you busy? Exactly, 24. Thank you. The panel is open. If you'd like to give your opinion pertaining to the information of the bombs and the devices in the trunk, all these things, I took notes because there was a lot to mention in this information. We have a ladder, ammunition. He also bought some online. So that's why I needed to know, when did Donald Trump team announce that he was going to Butler? We have July 3rd. So that means that Thomas had time to order ammunition online. Same day, the 50 rounds, ladder at Home Depot, this all Saturday morning, Butler County Farm Showgrounds is where this event took place. It opened at 1 o'clock. Mr. Trump was supposed to speak at 5 p.m. He made stops in the eastern part of the state before choosing Butler for this rally. Okay? Another thing I want people to focus on is that Butler, Pennsylvania, was the last stop before the RNC. The RNC started Monday. It is now Wednesday. It's supposed to be a 4-day event. Did Thomas decide, I've got to put a stop to Trump before he goes to the Republican convention? Because after this convention, he will then be formally nominated as the Republican candidate for president. Pay attention. See, the one thing Queen does, she does her homework. You don't have to like my opinions. You don't have to agree with my opinions. But the one thing I do is I do my homework. And I try to use logic with my commentary. But the point is, when you're talking about true crime, naturally, there's no logic. It's only the logic of the perpetrator. And I'm not the perpetrator. I didn't plan an attack on these people or Mr. Trump. I ain't sitting around thinking of a way to assassinate a former president. That's the point of the story. You got to know Thomas Crooks. You got to know what was on his mind. You got to know if this was a personal issue with Trump, personal issue with his rhetoric, personal issues with Republicans, the Republican Party, or if this was a guy who just became unhinged and he just wanted to hurt somebody and he just chose Trump because Trump was coming to his area. See, you got to ask all the questions. But the point is, you can't get an answer because you've shot the perpetrator. So who better to ask than the perpetrator? Well, he's not here to tell us anything. And so far, FBI haven't found a blueprint of why he did this. But this could be, as this counterterrorism person said, could be just he chose this man just because. And I put that in one of my shorts. Could it be he killed this man, shot at Trump, others, because he could? Didn't need a reason. Didn't need a motive. I did it because I could. And we've heard Dr. Phil say this over the years. People do what they want because they can. You need a reason. You, the outsider, the spectator, the person looking through the glass. You need a motive. You need to know why Thomas did this. Thomas could have decided to do this because he could. I've got the knowledge. I've got the fortitude. I've got the opportunity. I don't need a reason to assassinate a former president. I don't need a reason to order these explosives. You need a reason. Thank you, Porky. You need a reason why I did this. Could be he did it because, as I said, he could. Let me see if I can get away with it. Now, a psychiatrist would say, well, it's still something deeper than just he did it because he could. Well, I'll give you that. But how many times have you heard in interrogations where people committed crimes and they have said, I don't know why I did it? You hear children saying that when they've been caught doing something, stealing out of stores, stealing out a wallet. Excuse me, they've been caught. The mother or father will say, why did you do this? Why did you do this, Johnny? I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? I don't know. I just did it. I don't have a reason why I did it. Impulses. Impulse control. Perhaps all his life, he's walked the fine line to do what was expected of him, to do what is expected to be right. But somewhere his mind deviated from what is supposed to be right, and he decided he didn't care anymore. Perhaps he has not cared for some time about the thoughts of others, how other people's feelings are. And we've heard he was quiet. He didn't bother anybody. He was not nasty. He was not rude. So what happened to Thomas Crooks? What happened on this fateful day? See, you got to go back because it didn't start on July 13th. It didn't start on July 12th. It didn't start on the 10th. This announcement of Trump going to Butler was on the 3rd of July. So somewhere between the 3rd and the 13th, Thomas Crooks decided to unalive a human being. 10 days, less than 10 days. That is not a long time, but it's enough time. Stay woke. It's enough to exact a crime, because all it shows basically is premeditation. But where there's a problem, you go past the 10 days, he purchased hazardous materials. And Trump, I don't think, was on the radar months ago. I can't really say. I don't think so. I could be wrong. Who was the target months ago? See, this is where I said about the ideology. Perhaps he had became unhinged months before, year before, when there was no talk of Trump or thought about Trump or Trump was coming to Pennsylvania. I'm going to do something anyway. And then Trump comes along, ding, 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 ding. He's the icing on the cake. He's the icing on the cake. I've been wanting to do something. Been wanting to shoot up a place, blow up a place. Trump was the icing on the cake. Oh, here's my opportunity to show my handiwork. Come on with it, Queen, because they don't hear you. Could Trump have just been the icing on the cake? He was collateral damage of a mind that was already unraveled. Wasn't even about Donald Trump. It's about, I got a point to prove. I need to show the world what I'm made of, what I can do. Because a lot of times this is what we do. We're always trying to figure out why. Sometimes you can't figure out why. And he's left you no trail to the why. So that's why I'm saying this could possibly be, he was going to do this anyway. Trump just happened to come in the fold in his peripheral. He thought about it. Oh, there's my opportunity. I could do a sharpshooting event right there in Butler. Let me case the area. Let me do the area footage satellite. Let me drive over there. Let me take a look around. Let me take my shot. Yes, I think the rifle club from his past has a lot to do with it. I've mentioned that in my commentary and my shorts. He's been holding on a grudge from childhood. I can show them I can shoot. I like guns. I want to be in a gun club. They wouldn't let me be in there. You're teasing me. You're bullying me. I don't got friends. I will show you. What's the old saying? I can show you better than I can tell you. Point blank. Damn. That's what's going on. Past tense. I think that's the motive of all of this. The gun club from high school is the catalyst to what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. And also some other things, of course. I think he probably was all around a good kid, but he became detached from reality. And whatever hatred or dislikes he had about the world, people played a part in that shooting at the rally. Because sometimes people don't really think about, the motive, because you're not in that person's head and you're trying to chop it up. It's not supposed to make sense. That's the point. He's probably been upset, but he's held it in. And that's the most dangerous person walking around, is the person that's holding the anger in. They don't vent. They ain't crying. They ain't popping off. They ain't cussing people out. They ain't beating up people. They ain't hitting people. They ain't stabbing people. It's the person that's walking around holding in all that damn anger. That is the most dangerous person walking. Not the big mouth, not the loud mouth, but the person that ain't talking. The fact his parents had no idea what he was doing, what was going on with him. Why not? Oh, because he's 20-something years old or whatever. You ain't paying attention. He's going and coming. Everybody's doing their own thing in the house. We're not talking. We're not eating dinner. So you got to ask all those questions. Relationships with his parents. Did they talk? Did they get along? Did they favor him? Did they congratulate him? He was about to start at a university. So he had plans. Okay? He had plans. He just graduated from a 2-year college, May. That's just a few months ago. Going to a university in the fall. He had a job. So it's not like he wasn't doing anything with his life. So what happened? I think somewhere in his mind, as I said, he became unhinged and he had a point to prove. And he just took advantage of the fact that Trump was coming to town. Because as you're hearing, this event was only announced the 3rd of July. We're still in the month of July. So he said, okay, I'm going to take my shot. Here's my chance to prove to the world I'm somebody. I can do things. I can shoot a rifle. I can hit a target. And whether you want to accept it or not, as crass as it sounds, he did pretty damn good. If a person can shoot you in the ear from atop a fucking building 150 yards, I say they did pretty damn well. And that's not to be disrespectful. I'm telling the truth. And maybe that's what this is all about. His past. I was never good enough. They said I couldn't make the shot. I will show them I can. Was that the motive for the attempt on Donald Trump's life? I'm going to prove I can make the shot. Butler, Pennsylvania was the last stop before the RNC convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Donald Trump had visited this state 4 times before this 5th visit to Butler. $13,000 residents. Lord have mercy. What was the motive? Because many people are going to ask, naturally, the motive for this shooting. 1 man has lost his life, 2 injured, and there's a mention of another man and woman who also were grazed. You don't hear anything about them. Nothing. I do believe the fatalities could have been way worse than what happened. I think that's obvious. Way worse. 625 Evans City Road is where this event took place. 50 rounds. Saturday morning, purchased from a gun store. He had a total of 100 rounds. Metal box in the trunk with a explosives, device attached to his body. He walked into the checkpoint with that rangefinder and allegedly was put on radar, but obviously nothing happened. They lost track of him, or did they even intend on following him? See, we don't know. And somebody would probably make up something just to cover their ass, because they also know they were a party to this. Supposed to be watching the people in the grounds, police, and also the Secret Service. Probably want to just say, well, we'll put it all off on the Secret Service. And many people feel like it is the Secret Service's fault. We have the director, Ms. Cheeto, saying, we are responsible for the president. But in the end, Cheeto wasn't there. She put somebody in charge, and that was his or her responsibility to man this event. But like I said before, it's easy to put blame on the Secret Service because they're the ones responsible for Donald Trump. But you have to use deduction. That somebody still had to have known they did not have enough people to man the area. And as I said, when you look at the area by drone footage, it's not even logical. I'm sorry, but it's not. It's not logical. Because if a person can enter a property by 360 degrees, common sense would tell you there was not enough manpower, woman power to watch the property itself, because you're only cordoning off a certain amount of area for the event. But the point is, it's sitting on acres and acres of land. And if you did not man it properly, I just keep telling the truth. It was a recipe for disaster. This is a recipe for disaster because the land was too vast to hold that type of rally. And I think the assumption was that it was in the middle of nowhere. It was a safe place. It's not the inner city. It's not a high crime area. There's not a lot of flow traffic. But you're not thinking of the person who wants to do harm, which was Thomas Crooks. And that's what's so amazing about how all this went down, that you don't have somebody that's in the Secret Service that didn't think this is not a good idea. This is not a good place. We need coverage. We need to be inside. It's too much land. Too many ways to get on the property. I don't understand how somebody didn't think of that. And the flip side is somebody told Trump that. I don't think this is a good idea. There's too many ways for a person to get on this property and we won't be able to see them. Because we now hear that the police were supposed to man the outside perimeters. And that's where the fault came. Not enough people manning the perimeters outside of where the people were sitting. And then you have to start at the beginning, which is the checkpoint. And that has nothing to do with Secret Service. Because that's the whole point. You can't be everywhere at the same time. That's just common sense. So that's why I'm saying somebody should have said, this is not a good idea because we don't have enough people to man the road itself, the coming on the road. Hello, you got to come on the road to get into the perimeter. We don't have enough people to man the area of where we're going to have the rally. And we don't have enough people to man outside of the perimeter, which is the acreage itself. And that's no telling how many acres we're talking about. That was just a bad idea. And it doesn't matter that there have been rallies in Pennsylvania on farmland in the country. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that he didn't get shot a year ago or 2 years ago or 5 years. That has nothing to do with common sense. Somebody didn't go shoot him then. What does that have to do with what happened now? Nothing. You can't judge what somebody didn't do 2 years ago, a year ago, or 6 months ago. What does that have to do with what happened July 13th? Nothing. There's nothing to do with that. That was not a good idea. And I think Secret Service, the director, whoever was the lead, they know that. And I won't doubt somebody told Trump that. But he probably didn't want to hear it. Well, I want to go anyway. I want to do it anyway. I want to have it anyway. Nothing will happen. It's cool. It's laid back. The people laid back. It's a small community. It's awesome. It's great. Well, it wasn't great. It wasn't awesome. Because what's going to be jacked up is if we find out that boy hid that weapon somewhere. Then that means the property wasn't swept. The general area of the outbuildings were not swept. Because like I told you, when you look at an area view of those outbuildings, there's a little like a little cubby hole. Like a little square cubby hole. Anybody could have crawled over in there and just laid in there and sat in there. And nobody would have looked in there and would have had no reason to look in that cubby hole. See, you can't see it if you're not near the building to walk around to see that little brick alcove. You have no reason to know it's there because you have no business over there. But if you're up to no good, you walk that area, you did a drone footage satellite, you look, oh, they got a little alcove. I could just sit over in there, scale over in there, hide out for a little while. See, we don't even know what he did after he left the checkpoint. Just saying. It's all bizarre. Very, very bizarre. It was way too open. That it was. I would have never done that. But I think what people do, they become complacent. They become comfortable. And I think that's what happened with Donald Trump. He was too comfortable. And he's not the first and he won't be the last. Many people they think like him. They're just looking at the area. They're looking at the fact that it's out in the middle of, nowhere, and it ain't no big deal. Oh, ain't nothing bad gonna happen out here. Ain't nobody gonna do nothing to me out here. Everybody likes me. Well, everybody don't. That's why I say it don't even really matter the motive or why the boy did it. He did it because he could. It doesn't even have to be that he didn't like Trump. Could just been an opportunity to show the world he had something he wanted to prove to the world. And a lot of people do things like this. They do wild, wicked, wild out shit to prove a point. And I think some of this, whatever happened July 13th, I think he had a point to prove. That's what I think, Thomas Crooks. I think he had issues with himself, inner turmoil of who he was. He probably didn't like himself very much. He probably has been recoiling of how he was treated in school, grade school, high school. And he felt like nobody has noticed me, nobody has paid attention to me. But I know that when I do this, I can show the world what I'm made of. They'll know about Thomas Crooks in the end. They'll know I existed. They'll know my name. They will know I had a plan and I tried to execute the plan. They may not have liked me in high school. People who've met me may not like me. People on the job may not like me. Hell, my parents may not even like me. But I will show you I existed. I will show you I was in the room. I think that's exactly what happened July 13th. Thomas Crooks had a point to prove. And he wanted to prove that he existed. He had value. He was somebody important. Naturally, no one's going to view him in that manner because of what he did at that rally. But that's the whole point of other people's perception. You don't have to care about what I did. You don't have to care about who I am. But I could show you I'm valuable and I existed. Because in the end, that's all life is about, is perception. And I'm sure his parents are racking their brains trying to understand how it came to be that their child exacted this crime. And that's a lot to carry. People out on their lawn, news agents, neighbors talking. One lady, she's got the news people all on her porch and going on and on and on and talking to these people. People telling, all their recluses, they stay to themselves. There's nothing wrong with that. That's their choice. And I can't blame these people for what their son did. The son's grown. Because we don't even know who the parents are. We don't know anything about them to say yay or nay. Because in the end, he's an adult. He was grown. But what I thought was interesting in one of the articles I read, he's old enough to buy an AR-15, but he ain't even old enough to drink. How about that? Isn't that interesting? Old enough to buy a gun, but not old enough to drink alcohol. Shows you our priorities, does it not? We'll put an age limit on one thing, and then we put an age limit on something else. I give you the right to buy a gun, but I'm going to give you a few more years before you can drink alcohol. Make it make sense. You can go buy cigarettes, but you can't buy beer when they're both harmful to you. And obviously buying a gun is harmful as well. Even though the gun can't talk, can't walk, it needs help. But we view guns like they are people. Do we not? Some people do. Because people always say, it's not the gun's fault. It's just a gun. Well, it gets in the right hands. It does have feet. Huh. Shut your mouth. It's got feet. Once a person holds it, it's like it has feet and hands, the gun. Because it's now being operated by a two-legged creature with 2 hands, 2 feet. We're in dire times. And I don't see us being a united front because the world is so jacked up with different thought processes. The very reason why most of us can't get along, why we don't agree on things, and we act out, show out, fall out, throw tantrums like we're 3 years old. The very reason why we can't get along. And that's what's wrong with the world. People are carrying around a lot of baggage. I won't doubt that's what was going on with Thomas Crooks. He's been carrying around baggage and he didn't do anything about it. He didn't get help because people are going to judge it. Well, damn, he got two parents as counselors. Why didn't he talk to his parents? Well, the average kid don't talk to their parents. Come on. Kids don't talk to their parents at 12. You think they're going to talk to their parents at 20? They just hold it in. They just live with the demons. We all are living with demons. We all have insecurities. We all have issues. We all have hang-ups. We all have flaws. It's a matter of how we handle them, how we deal with them. Everybody don't deal with their flaws the same way. That's the problem. Because what affects you negatively don't affect me negatively. We all have our different plights in life, our different journeys. We've all lived different. We all have different goals, different ideologies, different preferences in people, relationships, how to look, how to dress, how to talk, how to walk, how to act. The very reason we don't get along. And you can best believe there will be another Thomas Crooks. Because people are not handling their business with their emotions. They're not getting help. Hey, I need help. I'm suffering. I'm angry. I'm mad. I'm sad. I'm alone. I feel lonely. I feel suicidal. I feel homicidal. Reach out to somebody and talk to somebody. That's what they should be promoting at this moment. Seek help if you feel sick in the head. You're becoming detached from reality. You need to seek help because we have violence every day. And that's something that needs to be touched on. Just so happened to be a former president. But if you go look in the YouTube queue and the news, people have still been killing and hurting each other since Saturday. And it's just Wednesday. That's the point. People are detached from the world. They're on their own, in their own zone. They are out there in La La Land. And they don't care nothing about you, the neighbor, their kids. They're doing their own thing because they're bitter, they're angry, they're mad, whatever the hell they got going on. And this is why people are hurting each other. They're fed up, they're tired. They might be lashing out at people who have actually done something to them. It's expected. Doesn't mean that it's right, but it's expected. And that's what people don't want to accept. And I also believe that you can mark yourself for bad luck. That's something that nobody wants to talk about because he was a former president. But you also have to own your part in the message you put out to the universe. And I was told that many years ago in this class that I took about accountability. You have to own your part in what you do out here. The way you act, the way you talk, because there's always going to be somebody that don't like you, somebody who's going to find a problem with you. And you also have to take responsibility for thyself. And that's something most of us don't want to do. I can do what I want. I'm grown. Say what I want. Do what I want. Who cares? Well, the universe cares. The earth cares. God cares. You can't do what you want. That's the narcissism in you saying, I do as I please, say what I want. Doesn't work that way. There's always repercussions, ramifications for your behavior, your actions. His daughter made a comment the other day that people have dehumanized her father. We'll go ahead and throw this in here, then I'm going to check out. That's her perception. That's her perception because her father was shot at. Okay? He was shot, excuse me. So that's her perception. Some people have dehumanized my father. Well, you know, the Queen is very analytical and a critical thinker. Is that true? Some people have dehumanized Donald Trump, or did Donald Trump dehumanize himself to lead to people dehumanizing him? Checkmate. Because you can't have one without the other. Because as I said, life is about perception. So if you're putting a negative image out into the universe to somebody else, what can you do about that? Because you cannot make a person like you and agree with you. No different than me being up here. You don't have to like what I say. You don't have to agree with what I say. But in the end, I do have to stand account for what I have said, whether it's good, bad, or your perception of it, or my perception of it. And that's the point. That you can put things out into the universe that can cause an adverse reaction. And a lot of us don't want to own that. We want to say, well, it's my right. It's my amendment, this and that, constitutional right. I got a right to do this and that. I got a right to throw up a bird. Foolish talk. There's always repercussions. Maybe God don't like what you're doing. Did that ever occur to anybody? Doesn't have to be about the masses. Don't have to be about what they're looking at next door, across the street, at my job, YouTube, the TV set. Maybe God don't like what you're doing and saying. Did it ever occur to any of you? Maybe God is not pleased with you. When I asked myself that today, I said, what happened in Pennsylvania? Who's responsible? Is this God's work or the devil's work? Because some will differ. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say it. Some will say this was God's doing. Because we know that God allows all, and he says it in the scripture, vengeance is mine. So is this God's work or is this the devil's work? Some will say, well, no, God will never do this. This is the devil's work. The devil sent that boy in there and did that. Okay. But God also knows all. So weigh it out. The devil used this young man to wreak havoc. And he was a willing participant, Mr. Crooks. But in the end, other people suffered. So whether he had a personal vendetta against Donald Trump or not, other people suffered. And that wasn't what they had intended. And that's the whole point. You don't have to like Donald Trump. You don't have to like his rhetoric. You don't even have to care for the people that support him. But they went there in support of him. And one paid the ultimate price. And you will have some harsh opinions pertaining to Mr. Trump, his supporters, the rhetoric that has been spun for years. And that's why people are asking the question now. What is the rhetoric going to be like now from Mr. Trump? And what are other politicians going to do and say from here on out since the shooting at the rally? One thing I've learned about people is that they don't really care. They don't really care. They might try to keep it piped down as not to incite more, hate amongst people. But they're not really being genuine when they know that's not really how they feel. It's just, well, we're going to, hush hush for a little while. But hell, come a couple months from now, everybody be crunk and talking crazy, trying to win an election. Throwing daggers, saying stuff. It's expected. Because things always go back to the way they were. Because it never stopped in the first place. It never stops. The ridicule, the accusations, the lies, the misinformation, the hate, it never stops. So these people can lay low for a while with the rhetoric, but before you know it, it'll be dagger throwing before November. And it'll probably be ugly as hell because somebody's going to want to win that presidential and vice president race. And what do we say in the street? By all means necessary. So these people will do whatever they got to do to try to win that damn race. So they'll forget all about that dead man that lost his life at the rally, Trump getting shot, other people being grazed, other people fighting for their lives in the hospital. That will be null and void in the next couple of months. It'll be as if it never happened. And that's the sad part. That nothing will change. Because in the end, you can't change the way people think. You cannot make people agree with one another. And that's where we have the problem, is that most people cannot have a civilized conversation without wanting to pop off and act out. Because we have people like this. They cannot hold a conversation. They cannot behave civilly. They cannot go into a room and sit down and have a decent conversation to disagree. They want to beat the dead horse. The horse is dead. It ain't getting up. And they will go on and on and on trying to make you understand their point, their reasoning. You cannot. And that's what Americans need to understand. Stop trying to make somebody believe what you believe. Think how you think. You can't make somebody think like how you think. You don't own the right to make me think the way you think. Act the way you act. You are your own individual. You got to stand account for you. Queen don't stand account for you. You don't stand account for Queen. And that's what people need to understand. That is why we're divided. Because we were raised different. We were taught different. We acquired our own values in different situations, scenarios along the way. The journeys we took change our mind on how we live and how we think. Just like you could think one way today, then you change your mind tomorrow. And that's the thing people don't understand about that either. You do have the option to change your mind. You can change your mind about something. Just like somebody's a Democrat today, then the next day decide they want to be a Republican or independent. That's their choice. They decide they don't want to vote. That's their choice. And we have a lot of people who don't even vote for whatever reason. Some people can't vote because they're felons, but felons are getting their rights back to vote. Everybody's entitled. Do as you see fit. People get mad and say, well, you should vote. You should vote. That's the only way you can get change. But a lot of times we vote and nothing changes. Because what did I say? You can't expect one person to change everything you think should be changed. You're mad about the speed limit. You're mad about the potholes. You're mad about this and that. Carrying permits, open carry, men dressed like women in the bathroom. The list goes on and on. And I've told people, a lot of you are walking around with hate for a president when the president, he has no jurisdiction over these things. And you go on and you go on and you bitch and you moan and you complain when the president can't change none of that stuff. That's what amazes me about people. Because nobody thinks. You have to rally for what you want to change. From housing to what's going on in your community, parks, recreations, everything starts at the bottom of the barrel, not the president. It starts locally, city, state. You got to start at the bottom. Thank you, Jage. That's why I don't understand how people get so upset at a president. This is what people do. A lot of people. I see it all the time in the videos, the comments. People are so ignorant. Anytime something goes wrong, you blame the person that's the president. What does the president have to do with what you are doing wrong? I don't care who's in office. It could have been Bush, Reagan, Obama. Obama didn't tell nobody to go out here and shoot their neighbor. That's your choice. Reagan didn't tell you to go shoot your neighbor. Jimmy Carter didn't tell you to go shoot your neighbor. But now that these modern day presidents, I've noticed that in every article I read, it doesn't even have to be anything about politics. Somebody shot somebody. Oh, must have been a black man. Oh, must be a minority. Oh, we know what color they are. Are you kidding me? So this is the shit that keeps us divided as people. Assumptions. Profiling. Now they're raising hell about that man that got shot in Minneapolis. Up there in, Milwaukee. Homeless guy. More nonsense. Police officers from Ohio shooting a man. They're supposed to be working the fucking convention. They're all the way over here, a mile away, shooting at a man. He had knives. They said knives in his hands, so they shot him. But who's to say he wasn't running, trying to protect himself from somebody in a homeless camp? See, we don't know because a dead man can't talk. And I'm not condoning him having knives, but I also wasn't there to know, hey, maybe he had the knives to protect himself because it is dangerous living in homeless camps. That's my point. Nothing stops because the ex-president got shot. There's always going to be something happening. And that proved it right there. 1 mile from the convention, and Ohio police shoot a black man, and they're supposed to be monitoring this damn Republican convention. It's jacked up. So violence don't stop. Because you can't change people. That's the point. That's the point. You can't tell people how to think. You can't tell people how to react. And that's the problem we have in America right now. People popping off, people not dealing with their emotions, not dealing with their mindset in a proper manner to where they pop off. And like I said, we all make mistakes. We all can get jiggy. We all can lash out. But when you decided that you want to unalive a human or more, it's time for you to get some help. You need to go get you some help. Because this will not be the last incident of a person trying to harm a politician. This is just the beginning. And the best thing for somebody to do is to think it out for himself. Because I personally, as I have said so many times in my live streams, I don't let nobody else think for me. And if I was a politician, I'm thinking about everything. I'm not just going to sit here and let Secret Service map out my afternoon. You're not mapping out nothing for me. Because I'm going to do my own research. I want to know where I'm going. I'm going to say yay or nay to the venue. I want to know how many men or women in my camp are going to be on the ground. I want to know where they're going to be at all times. I want to know the protocol and the plan. I'm not just going to let you say, well, hey, we're going to Butler, Pennsylvania. We're going out in the middle of nowhere. You'll be all right. Hell no. Because Trump had to have known his detail. He had to know how many people he had in his whole entourage. And he had to have seen that area, what it looks like, been there before, and say to himself, I don't think I got enough people. You can't bet on it's a great place in the neighborhood. This is not Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. That was a myth. You're in the middle of nowhere. And that was more dangerous than being in an inner city such as Milwaukee, in a structured building where shit could still pop off. But you're out in the middle of nowhere, vast land that runs for miles. Come on. You could see for miles. You'd have to use common sense to say, I don't think this is a good idea, because the land is too vast. And so even though you're roping off a perimeter to hold a rally, you're still on acres of land, and people could still have accessed the land, which that's exactly what happened. Mr. Crooks had a plan, and he executed the plan to the best of his ability. And he had forethought. That's obvious. When did he execute the plan? When did he decide to attempt to unalive Mr. Trump? What was his end game, end goal? He obviously was going to plan on going back to work. So I'm assuming he thought he was going to live this debacle. But he also had plans with devices to detonate and also body armor for the worst case scenario that he would be shot. When I get more information, I will gladly bring up live and or shorts. Please check out my shorts, because I will put some more shorts up pertaining to this information that was revealed in this live stream. Right now, there is no motive. There is no commentary to why he wanted to exact this crime. No online searches have come up so far. No radicalized groups that he was a party to. So far, no text messages, conversations with outsiders. Because I'm going to ask that as well. Did he talk to anybody about his thoughts of Mr. Trump or the Republican Party or anything else? Did he join any secret type of group societies? Has somebody been in his ear talking about Donald Trump, Republican Party? The fact that his parents are all liberals, had they been saying something to him about being Democrat, Libertarian, so on and so forth? Have they been spewing any type of rhetoric with him and he became disgruntled with Trump, the party, Republican Party, so on and so forth? What's the truth? And will they get to the truth? Because so far it's looking like they don't have anything, the government. And that's the gist of the story. It may be nothing on file to show he thought this way or that way. It could be what I said earlier. He had something to prove from a long time ago, and he chose this event to exact the crime, to show the world that he existed. That's my commentary. Thank you for joining. Like, share, subscribe, drop your comments below this video. Take the polls. Watch the shorts. Movie of the week. Birth, Rebirth, free on Hulu. And I also have another suggestion I'm going to put up here shortly that I really want you to check out, that I watched on Tubi last night. And if you'd like to donate to this great network, $ Big Angie 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome during the live stream. Thank you for your time, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Please stay hydrated and stay cool, because the temperatures are very, very hot in most states. So please try to stay cool and out of the heat. Thank you, Skylar. Thank you all so much for joining me. Have a wonderful week, everybody. You have been listening to the Vault XL.